नमस्कार दोस्तों. Hello everyone. My name is Vinod Kumar. Today we are talking about the AWS Certified Advanced Networking Specialist course. So first of all, we will discuss about the VPC endpoint. So there is a certain questions why we use VPC endpoint and what is the benefit if we use the VPC endpoint, and what the challenge before and after implementing the VPC endpoint. So there are the certain questions, and we will discuss all these questions in upcoming slides. So understand the challenges. If you know, if you are using the AWS services, and there is if you are using the AWS account and there is a multiple services like EC2, S3, DynamoDB, IAMs, RDS, and so many services are hosted on the AWS environment, and AWS support the multiple services. So a basic challenge is connectivity. How we can connect if there is a multiple services in the particular AWS account, and why we need the internet to connect all these services which is managed by AWS and which is hosted on the AWS environment. So why we use the internet if the AWS is giving their own network? So to solve these problems, there is a VPC endpoint. So challenge with the private workload. You know, there are two type of workloads in the AWS environment, that public and private. So you know the what is the public subnet, and you know the what is the private subnet. In the public subnet, if we have any workloads, so we require a internet gateway to communicate with the other services which is hosted on AWS environment, like other services. You can say that DynamoDB, S3, and other databases and other services which we need to connect. We need to make the connection between the two services or multiple services. So we require the internet connectivity to make the connections between that services. So to address this challenge, we require the VPC endpoint. And okay, so next is the private subnet. So you, if you have the any services which is are hosted in the private subnet, and you require to connect other services, then you require the internet connectivity. Okay, without internet, if any service is hosted in the private subnet, and you want to connect to other services, you cannot connect without the internet. So this is main challenge. If you are hosting any services in the private subnet and you want to connect with the other services, so without internet, how we can connect? So that is a VPC endpoint use. So main challenge and customer demands. So there is a there is so many resources hosted in the AWS environment, and to communicate between the multiple services. Internet is we require the internet to communicate between the multiple services. So customer wants if the customer want without internet, how we can establish the connectivity between multiple services which is hosted on the AWS environment and using the AWS network. So how we can use that? So that is the main challenge. So VPC endpoint give the that features how we can connect the multiple services which is hosted on AWS environment, and they in the backend side you can see that they are using that service are using the AWS network. So why we are not use that the VPC endpoints to communicate with between make the connectivity between that services? So what is the benefit of that? What is the benefit if we implement the VPC endpoint? So there is a better security, low latency, lower cost. If we use the internet, so internet is very public internet, there might be the latency. There is a higher cost because the data transfer cost, downloadings, and there may be the security concerns. Data may be lost because that is passing through the public internet. So the chances the security is main concerns for this if we are using the public internet. So downside of the public internet, that already we are discussing about the downside of the public internet. The data transfer cost of the AWS, which is very high if we use the public internet. Higher latency, if we have to use the public internet to communicate between the multiple services which is hosted on AWS, the latency would be the higher rather than the private network. Can the bottleneck or your internet gateway? Definitely. If our internet connectivity is lost with if our internet connectivity is lost with any regions, by the any region, so we cannot access the other services. This is the bottleneck of our environment. Security is definitely one of the reasons. If the data is passing through the public internet, so the data loss chance would be high, and the security concern is very, very high. So introducing VPC endpoint. So to address these type of issues like data transfer cost, security, latency, to address these type of issues, we can use the VPC endpoint. So we do not any public subnet, we can use the private subnet, and with the private subnets we can connect the other service also with the help of VPC endpoint. So there are three type of VPC endpoint: gateway endpoint, interface, and gateway load balancer endpoint. These three endpoints are different. There are different use case, and there is some dependency for other services like VPC. First of all, we will discuss about the gateway endpoint. So gateway endpoint architectures, we don't require any public subnet for this implement the gateway endpoint. We require the private subnet only. In the private subnet there is a route table. In the route tables we have to add the routes for this particular VPC gateway endpoint. How the gateway endpoint communicate with the other service? There is a prefix list. Every service has their backends IPs. So with the prefix list is the IP of that particular service. That is a DynamoDB and S3. So VPC endpoint, which is the gateway endpoint, is support only two services, DynamoDB and S3. This particular gateway endpoint support only two services, DynamoDB and S3, and these prefix list, which is the IP list. So there are certain IP which is associated with the DynamoDB and S3s. So we have to add that route of that IPs with the help of prefix list in the subnet private subnet routing table. So after adding the route of that particular VPC endpoint, so we can make the connection between the EC2 and other services. What service supported service for this particular gateway endpoint? So only S3 and DynamoDB is supported services for this gateway endpoint. Okay, so now we will jump with the practical. Thank you. We will meet you in the next video. Thank you.